All right, crew. Hey, so about a week ago, uh, someone posted actually, I guess it was Vanessa Burns, posted the um, in the headshot group about doing some color changing on a shirt and how her technique was relatively limiting, et cetera, et cetera. And I posted a video explaining how I think she did it and then showing how I would do it in hopes that it would help her. And her response to that was, hey, Jason, unfortunately, I couldn't get your method to work. I think because you had already done the steps of creating the mask, I couldn't follow step by step to know that I was doing the right thing. Boo. Thank you, though. So I can't go out on a boo. That would just be crazy, right? We gotta go out on a win. So what we're gonna do today is we are going to fill in the blanks. And to do that, we're going to take her image and we are going to stick it right in here. I say we're going to stick it right in here. There we go. Okay, so there's several different ways to do this, as I talked about before. Photoshop has really done some amazing things with the ability to select subjects and separate subjects from the background, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of different ways to do this. Probably the easiest way to do it is just to go up here and grab grab the quick selection tool, okay? And then you can adjust the size of it if you want to. For this, it probably just really doesn't matter. And then just start on whatever it is that you want to select. And Photoshop will do a pretty good job of picking out the areas that you want to select. And so this is where we're going to start roughly, okay? And I'll show you why I say roughly. If we zoom into 100%, we can see right in here there are some areas that Photoshop was unable to select correctly, and probably some other areas too. The way that you fix that is you just go back and make sure you have your selection tool active again, and you go right up here to the top where it says select and mask. And that's going to open up a new dialog. And I like to have mine on red just because it offers a bit of contrast and you can see what you're doing. There's a lot of different overlay methods that you can use. Onion skin is one. Marching ants is probably what we're the most familiar with, people that have been working in Photoshop. But I like to do overlay just because, like I said, it gives me a bit of contrast. And then literally you just zoom in on the area that you need to work with. And you can really zoom in there if you want to. And over here, our options are a little bit different. The first one is just basically the same selection tool that we had before. Now, I'm going to say something here that this may be just my subjective experience. But when you're using this tool, it seems to me like it works better if you start with the plus or minus. If you're subtracting, if you're taking things away from the mask, you would do minus. If you start with the plus on the side that you want to add to, or the side you want to subtract. But in this case, we're adding, right? So the parts that are in red are the parts that are outside the mask, and the parts that are the color of the subject are the parts that are inside the mask. So we want to add this area right in here to the inside of the mask. So we have the plus icon active. Start on the area that you want to add to and click your mouse button and then just begin to kind of drag it down. And basically what you're telling Photoshop is, hey, replicate what I'm dragging this over. At least that's my subjective experience with having used this. It seems like that's how it works. And like I said, it may just be I've never read anything that necessarily spoke to the fact that what I'm saying is accurate, but my subjective experience suggests that if you do that, um, it works better. So this is good for here. The last time I did it, I didn't get quite so much of the shadow, but we're going to see how that goes. You can adjust the size of your tool, and then just pull this right along the edge here. And the cool thing about it is if you just go crazy and you get over here and you're like, oh, I got too much of the neck, you just hold down your Alt key, and if you'll notice, the plus sign in the center of your tool changes to a minus sign. That means we're going to take this stuff away from the mask. Let's get in there like that and take it away. Then we're back up here and we're back to adding stuff to the mask. Okay? And make this a little bit smaller. And you can, I mean, like, you can spend a lot of time refining a mask. And we are into this way beyond 100% magnification. So if we zoom out on this, this is, I was probably working too closely, to be honest about it, but I just wanted to kind of give you guys an example. And you can, go around the edges of your subject to make sure that everything looks, make sure that everything looks good to you. I personally think that for what we're doing here, this mask is plenty good. Maybe some little, maybe we may have to deal with some fringing stuff up here, but that may be okay. So once you've got that done, once you've used the quick selection tool and then you've used the refining mask options that are here, it's time to get it back into something we can work with. I usually go over here to Output to New Layer with Layer Mask and click OK. And now we have our working layer. This is what we're going to do all of our changes on. If I click the underline layer, you can see. But this is the part that we're going to be doing the color changing on. So just to show you guys with a really quick refresher on how I would do this, first thing I would do would be to duplicate that layer. Then I would come right onto this layer, the underlying layer, and I would drop in a hue saturation adjustment layer. The only reason I'm putting this layer in is to just desaturate that shirt and get rid of it. I turn this layer off, we can see. So now I've taken all the color out of that, and I want to make sure that I'm clipping that adjustment layer to the layer below it. Sorry guys, it's late, or it's not late, but it's late for me. I had a long day. Okay, so there we have the shirt desaturated. If we go into here, we can see, okay, desaturated. Now what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to go to this layer, okay, and we are going to want to drop in a solid color adjustment layer. And here you can pick whatever you want to. I prefer blue, so we're going to pick a nice blue for a solid color adjustment layer. And then we're going to take this layer mask and drag it and drop it right on there. Yes, replace the mask. Okay, so now we have this. Doesn't that look great? It looks great, Jason, but it's not the right blending mode. You're 100% right. This is just normal. All it's doing is just covering up the color. And there's a lot of different blending modes that you can use. And some of them work better than others, but pick a blending mode that you like. Usually something like Multiply works well, and you can see there's some cleanup that really we need to do with our mask. But so you can pick different blending modes, right? Remember that these blending modes up here in the second section are designed to darken, so you're going to get some different results from those than you would if you were dealing with some of these blending modes down here that are there for lightening. So just pick, find whatever it is that you like. Different pictures, different subject matter is going to respond differently. Some of them are just absolutely not going to work at all, right? I mean, we know that. But I usually think that Multiply works pretty good. And then you can also change things like fill and opacity and stuff like that to get the color in this that you're gonna want. So now let's take a look at, we've got the color selected here. Let's zoom in here a little bit and look at cleaning up some of this mask. And if you're not familiar with working with masks, I think masks probably take a little bit of learning curve in order to sort of get really good at them. And I'm not by any stretch of the imagination a master at this, but the basic thing is anything that is black on the mask is hidden. So if I switch this over and I make sure that I've got my opacity at 100%, okay, and I come in here with black and I start to paint. Let me turn off some stuff under here. Just turn off everything. Okay, so now if I'm on the mask here and I've got black and I've got 100% opacity, maybe that was my problem, 100% opacity, and I paint black, it's going to hide everything that's in this blue layer. Okay, so black hides and white reveals. Okay, black conceals, white reveals. That's what you need to remember about masks. Now, opacity on your mask is basically how, well, opaque the black paint or the white paint that you're putting on the image, how opaque it is, right? So if we do 27%, we're getting this much opacity. Now, if I go over that a second time, the areas where I'm doubling up now have double, right? They have 27 plus 27. Now, if I go and do another swipe, okay, now the areas that have been painted over 3 times have 27 plus 27 plus 27, and the areas that have been done twice have double, and the areas that have been done once just have 27. So it's cumulative. If you go and do it again, okay, then you're going to wind up with, eventually, you'll wind up with 100% opacity in areas where you continually double that up, right? So that's one thing to understand about the opacity of the paint, as it were, that you're putting on the mask. So we're going to want to clean up some of these edges and stuff around here. And probably the best way for us to do that is to, like I said, take us a relatively low opacity and then come in and just kind of start, and then maybe let's get something under here so we can see what we're working with here, and make our tool a little smaller and just come in and start cleaning up some of this stuff around the edge here that is causing this to look a little bit wonky. And over here's a good place to show. So we missed a little piece of shirt there. And so we can come over here again and grab our brush tool, okay? And so we've got white as our foreground color. So we need to paint over this. So right now we've got 27% opacity. We can raise that up to 100%, and we can come right in here. We can really just paint that in right along that edge there and get this cleaned up a little bit right in through here. And once you get your mask cleaned up, the mask is probably the most important part of the whole thing, because you really have to have a good mask before you're going to get a good realistic change on this. And so spend as much time as you need to cleaning up your mask and making sure that you've got these areas that are just looking weird. And that's definitely the shirt under there. I was wondering why that was looking like that, but it definitely is the shirt under there. Maybe it's just a little bit too bright along that edge, and we can come in here and we can tone that down a little bit as we go along here. So this is just one way of doing masking, or getting your initial mask so that you can start doing your color changing. And again, I recommend that you spend as much time as is necessary in order to get a good clean mask. The better your mask to start with, the better, the more realistic um, your final color change is going to be. So get in there and clean up those areas that the automated mask selection stuff missed. And it's going to miss some stuff. That's just sort of the nature of automated processes. They're never going to be as good as doing it. I got way off on that one. They're never going to be as good as doing it by hand. But spend time to get your mask cleaned up so that you've got a good base to start with. And then literally once you've got that done, you're back to the same thing that I pointed out before, where you can just do, whatever color changes on this that suit your particular situation. So that's one way to do it. I'm going to show you guys a completely different way to do this. So we're going to select all of these and we are going to get rid of them. Okay. The other way to select a color is to go to select and choose color range. Now, color range is basically does exactly what it says it does. You get an opportunity to sample a color range. So if we click on the shirt, now it's telling us, okay, everything that is in white is selected and everything that is in black is hidden. And so we've selected this particular range of color, and whatever the average of the 3x3 square pixels that we selected. And if you click multiple places, you'll get different. If we click on his face, obviously it's going to do that. So when you click, it's going to give you different. You're going to start with different selections depending on where you pick. If you pick something that's really in the shadows, you're going to get a different selection than if you pick something that is a bit more in the highlights. Okay, so once you start, click wherever you want to. Once you start, then you click right here on this plus eyedropper, and then everywhere you click then will be added to the mask. And the whole idea here is you just want to click until you've got the whole shirt, even into the shadows and stuff, selected. Okay, and because there's pink and there's also pink in his face, it's going to select some of that as well. But we're not worried about that, right? That's okay for some of the face to be selected because we're going to clean up this mask later. So just make sure that you get into the various areas and make sure that you've got the shirt completely selected, and I think we do here. Okay, so now we're going to say, okay, now we get what we recognize again as the marching ants that are going around, and you can zoom in and see there's a couple places that we didn't pick up here. Okay, well this is super simple. All you have to do is come up here and grab your quick selection tool again and say, okay, I want to add that part. So now that part is added to the selection. I prefer to do it this way. This is the way I did in the original video that I posted about a week ago. It just does a better job, in my opinion, of picking areas that maybe we would miss. Okay, so now we have to get rid of these areas up here where we don't want around edges around his face and all that sort of stuff, right? And so that is super simple to do as well. You can just go ahead and grab your quick selection tool again. I like to make my tool a bit bigger. Hold down Alt and say, okay, Facebook. Okay, Photoshop, I don't want any of this stuff up here included in my mask. And there you go. And that is done, basically. I mean, there's a little bit of cleanup and stuff we need to do, but it does a really good job of masking this out. Let's adjust our tool down a little bit, put it right in there and say, okay, this is not what we want. Oh, too much. Control Z, just get rid of, oops, Control Z, Alt, get rid of, oh, we may have to do that by hand, or it may not, it may be okay. So anyway, there's that mask done. So now, or there's that selection done. So now to create a mask from that, you just go right down here, click on the mask tool, and here we have it, right? Now you can see in here, okay, it selected some of his skin that matched that color tone, okay? And, you know, okay, no big deal, because we go on our mask, we go for our brush tool, we make our brush just a tiny bit bigger, okay? We go to 100% opacity, and we say black, because we want to hide, we want to take all of this out of our mask. And so we just go around here, and we paint right in here. We get rid of this. I'm going to back up a little bit to go with a little bit smaller tool up there, right about here, so we don't have quite so much bleed over. And so this ragged fringe around the edge here is actually going to make our mask and our color changing look a lot better, because we should have some better transitions in the edges and stuff. So just get in here and clean this up. And I don't know how this video is going to render, but if you can't see, there's some pink that it picked up from the subject's skin that has been included in the mask, and we're just going to clean that up so that we have a bit better mask. And as you can see around the edges of this, this is a really nice way to create a mask, in my opinion. It does a really good job of getting us a working mask there. And sometimes it's good, you know, to leave a little bit of that fringe skin that it left, or the masked out areas of the skin that it left up there, because when we change the color of this, there's always going to be a little bit of color cast that happens from the clothing onto the skin. So if you've got a little bit of that hanging around the edges, it's not necessarily a bad thing, because when you do your color change, oftentimes it helps to sell the legitimacy of it a little bit better. So that's something to keep in mind, that it's not always a bad thing to have some of those color selection artifacts left in your mask, because, like I said, it's just going to help us sell that a little bit more. Okay, so we've got that done. Control J, we're going to copy that layer. Remember, the first thing that we're going to do here is we're going to remove the color. I'll go ahead and make another one. The first thing we're going to do, I'll drop this mask off here because we're not going to need it. Delete that mask. Okay, so the first thing that we are going to do is we are going to remove the color from the shirt. And again, the way we do that is we drop a hue saturation adjustment layer in, and we just pull saturation all the way down. And if we pin that, okay, turn this one off. There we go. So now we have a colorless shirt. So if we have to adjust opacity or something, we're not going to have the color of the we're not going to have the color showing through for us. So we're starting with that. Now, this layer up here is the one that we're going to work on. And the thing that we're going to do is we are going to drop in a solid color adjustment layer on that one. And we're going to go with, I don't know, this time let's go with green, about that green. Okay. And then we are going to pull that one up on top. And we are going to change the blending mode to multiply. And then we're going to take the mask and we're going to pull it right up there, drop it off, replace it, yes. And there we go. Pretty good right out of the gate, to be honest about it. The only thing that we're probably going to need to do here is we're probably going to need to go and we're going to need to clean up some of this fringe around the edges here. And this is just, dude's shirt was fuzzy for whatever reason. And so we just need to go in there and clean up some of that stuff. There's a million videos on YouTube that'll show you how to deal with fringing. That's not really what we're doing here, and I don't want this video to go over any longer because I really was just wanting to talk about masking. I just wanted to piggyback in on this and show you, how to do basically all the techniques in a in a quick tutorial. So that's how I do it. Two different ways to do the masking, and one is not necessarily better than the other. It's just that in some instances the quick selection tool is a good option, and then in some instances the color selection tool is the best option. And I just wanted to show you guys the two different ways that I do it so that you would have some options. So hopefully this helps. Hey, if you have any questions or whatever, I mean, I'm happy to do this. I'm probably in no way an expert, but I do know how to do a few things, and I don't mind sharing with you guys. I firmly believe that a rising tide lifts all ships. The better that you are at this craft, the better the craft becomes for everyone. You guys have a great day.